Great. Perfect. Thank you so much. So brilliant. So thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you today. And as Lindsay said, I'm going to kind of speak a little bit about knowledge mobilisation from kind of my perspective as an academic, as somebody who's working in the ICB, and as somebody who's gone through that kind of process of looking to implement an intervention. So knowledge mobilisation, then, what is it? And is it for me? And I guess is it for you? Is a better title. So what we hope to think about today is what is KM? How might it relate to your research, either at the planning stage or going through the process of research, or whether you're at the end of your kind of research journey in a project as well. When should you maybe considering the process of KM, and maybe some of those tips about things that you might be able to do as well. So what is KM? I'm going to put the caveat here and say this is in my opinion, because you'll see so many definitions, none of which I think quite hit the mark for me. So I brought in lots of ideas around what it might be. And for me, it's about bringing the right people together who bring their various knowledge, experiences and understanding. And that might be for multiple reasons. So it might be to plan a project, it might be to solve a particular problem, that might be improvements of service, it might be more commercial, so it might be to market a product, or it might just be to support best practice. And the team that come together, their individual drivers may be actually very different, but ultimately they will share the same vision. And often we see these individuals coming together as part of a community of practice or a task and finish group, are terms that you might be familiar with. And some of those drivers might be very different, and the impact that we want to achieve might be very different. So for many of us, it's probably around improving health, well-being, or the ability to manage conditions. It may be addressing inequalities. Hopefully it might be improving clinical outcomes and maybe cost efficiencies around services. It could be for commercial gain, as I said, and we may have a product that we want to market. And also it might be for academic progression as well, because it's part of that kind of progress through that academic pathway and things that we'd like to kind of see on our CVs. So there might be many reasons why individuals are involved for KM. So asking you, this might be something you're asking yourself. So is it for me and my research? Well, I would suggest that if you're somebody that is undertaking research or has undertaken research and you want to have an impact from your research, then actually, yes, knowledge mobilisation is for you, because it's that thing that bridges the gap between doing the research and then having an impact from the research as well. So KM being the bridge between those two. So yes, I would argue KM is for you and is for everyone involved in the world that we're in. So thinking about when we need it. So this is the research cycle that I'm sure many of you will be familiar with. And I think this is interesting because I think traditionally we used to think about knowledge mobilisation as something that sat at this point when we got to writing and publishing our results. And it was traditionally thought of as a dissemination strategy. And I think that's kind of really outdated now if we want to think about the true benefits that KM brings to the processes of research. And I think that we really need to think about KM as starting at this very early part of that research cycle, when we're really thinking about ideas and those problems that we're wanting to kind of capture and wanting to address. And I think that early involvement really helps us to kind of create the networks that are necessary for successful KM. It creates advocacy for our work and our projects, and it really helps us to provide perspective, so different perspectives on our work and our ideas that eventually kind of come together and really facilitate impact, because we've thought about these things earlier on, we've engaged with the right people, we've started to ask the right questions early on, that then we can then build on that throughout this whole research cycle to facilitate impact throughout the research and then certainly at the end as well. So thinking about then what you might be able to do now. So you're going to be, all of you, at various points within this research cycle. So when you're really thinking and planning a project, I'd say things that you can do: create an elevator pitch. Think about what it is that your idea is, what you really want to sell in a really quick and coherent way that's really accessible to everyone. So you can really start to gauge how your idea is landing amongst multiple people. You can really think about your team composition early on as well. And very frequently we see beautifully formed academic teams coming together, but without real consideration for who is it that we are looking to influence, who is our research going to impact later on. Of course, it's likely to be patients, but what are those other organisations or groups that might be impacted by this work as well? And bring them together, bring them into your team, because they'll strengthen it, because they'll help you think about things from different perspectives. Those individuals may also have positions of influence. Again, thinking about later on, is somebody from a professional society helpful to have on your group early on? Is somebody from NHS England appropriate to have earlier on? So really think wider about who those individuals kind of might be. Then when we're actually kind of planning and writing those ideas and those proposals for funding, those individuals will really help us think about what is realistic and what is feasible, because they're embedded within those services, so they really understand what those challenges might be. They really help us to understand as well and think about what these outcomes of interest might be. So it's really helpful if at an early stage you've thought about what is the evidence that's needed at the end stage to help decision makers make those decisions. So build this into your research. And they might really help you think about what are the methods that are most appropriate as well. So a lot of the time, people think that trials might be the best quality evidence that helps decision makers determine whether things are appropriate for them. But actually, often they lack some of the contextual understanding that some other methods might bring to the table as well. So really think about what are the most appropriate methods for you and your work. Then when you're going through that process of the research, share some information that you have as soon as possible. For many designs, well, certainly for trial designs, often we're in a position where we can't share information for 3, maybe 4 years. But actually, if there's some other designs, or we have maybe embedded process evaluations within the trial design, are there snippets of information that you can share early on that might help people with early decision making, but also might help to maintain their interest as well for you throughout your studies? And really use your whole wider team to really help you think about what your results really mean when you're at that interpretation stage, because you'll see things from your perspective, but actually once you involve other people in their perspective, then actually it really helps you fully understand what those results are saying and what the impact might be. And then when it comes to your kind of publication plan, really think widely about what those outputs might be. Of course, you need papers, but actually they're probably the things that have the least impact for your research. So consider things that are really helpful to practice. So think about infographics, think about toolkits, think about different media to share those results. Think about how this then might be used more widely. So a project that we've just done has made little videos to go in GP practices to play on their screens to help really share information. So try to think really widely about what those things might be. And then equally think about, are there other organisations that you might be able to partner with to help you kind of share your ideas? So these might be impact accelerator units within universities or within the NHS. The ARCs may be interested in your work. Maybe if it's more tech orientated, then the Health Innovation Network might also be interested. So really look around to see who else might be appropriate for you to partner with to share your work to facilitate that whole impact journey. And when we do this, it's often ideal to try to create a plan of how we might kind of think about our knowledge mobilization process. And we normally think about the use of logic models to actually assist with this. And haven't really got time to go into logic models today, but many of you, I'm sure, are really au fait with them, but happily to chat outside of this if that's helpful. But the benefits of an implementation of a KM plan is it really helps you to bridge the gap between the knowledge that you have and the goal that you really want to achieve. And we talked about some of those goals at the beginning. It really provides a focus for you and creates that work plan and allows you to kind of monitor the progress and see how you're getting on and maybe address some of those challenges that you're having in supporting implementation. It also gives you an opportunity to document and reflect on learning so that when you come to your next project, you can think about, well, this worked well in this context. Actually, is this going to work this time? Or maybe this didn't work quite so well. Reflect on why it didn't work quite so well that time so that next time you've really had the opportunity to kind of learn from your previous endeavours. However, what I would also say is why it's important to have a plan is that it shouldn't be restrictive and kind of create and stifle any creativity. So for me, KM is very much a science, but also an art as well. And many serendipitous opportunities will arise that will allow you to kind of achieve more impact from your research as well. And actually, I think one of those really classic examples of that is really COVID and how that created many opportunities for people to think about more creatively how they may achieve impact from their work. And when you create your plan as well, really think about involving others in helping you create it. Because actually, clearly the sum of those parts is more insightful because people bring different ideas, different knowledge to the table, different viewpoints. And it's often really difficult for us as individuals to really unsee what we kind of think needs to happen and really fully understand those perspectives of others. So really take on board other people's ideas as well when you're thinking about your kind of implementation and knowledge mobilization plan. So what might that exist of? So these are the things that you should be asking yourself when you're putting your kind of KM plan together. So the what? What is it that you want to share and what you want to mobilize? And what are those key messages that you want to get across? That's kind of from your perspective, but what's really important is the why. So why is it important for those other stakeholders that you want to engage with? Why are you doing it? But actually, for them, what are they kind of getting from it as well? So why should they engage with you? Try to align your work to what might be the benefits for those individuals as well. Think about the who. Who is it that you want to kind of work with? So who are your partners? Who might be the champions for your work? Are they people that have maybe a bit more credibility in an organization than you and are likely to have kind of more influence? The how. How will you share your product in its widest sense? So think about the multiple ways that you might think about doing that. How are your end users involved? So as we said before, bring them in earlier on because they'll have some great ideas as to how you might kind of think about sharing your product as well. When might this happen? I think this is a really critical one. So what might be the right time for you might not be the right time for other people or the stakeholders that you're looking to influence. So if you can try to kind of align this to maybe something that's going on within their world, are they looking to create a plan or maybe a framework in their own organization that yours can kind of align to? If that's the case, then it kind of tends to work a lot better if those things come together. But don't be surprised if your plans are kind of put on hold for 6 months while those stakeholders that you're looking to engage with and influence deal with the immediate issues that they're having to deal with. So think about when that good time might be. And then finally, really think about what your measures will be. How will you determine whether you've had an impact? What are those indicators of impact? and how will you measure those? And again, think about engaging with those stakeholders to help you decide what those might be. So in summary, create a living KM plan really early on in the process. Engage multiple people and stakeholders when you're planning your KM. That will help individuals take ownership as well, and they'll be advocates for you throughout the whole process of your research. Don't be too rigid, so capitalize on those kind of non-planned opportunities as well. Maybe consider theory. You haven't had any opportunities to talk about this today, but there are many theories and frameworks out there that you can look at to help support your implementation plan. And be tenacious. So it's important to keep pushing at doors, but really realize that it might be your priority, but it might not be that of others at this time. So, be prepared to be flexible and maybe change your plans and change the timing of your plans to meet those of the stakeholders that you're looking to engage with too. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you about this today.